The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Dylan Mangan of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we get into things, I'd like to give our listeners just a gentle reminder to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now, our main guest on this week's podcast is the now 3-time World Rowing Champion, Fintan McCarthy, who caught up with Kieran following his exploits alongside Paul O'Donovan for Team Ireland at the World Rowing Championships in Belgrade. Fintan gives us some great insight into the confidence the pair have on the water, how their approach has had to change year on year, and he looks forward to Paris 2024 as well. So all that to look forward to on the podcast. But before we hear from him, Kieran, let's run through some other West Cork sporting stories from this week. And first up, we'll look ahead to some huge football games in store at the weekend. Probably the best place to start is in the Premier Senior Football Championship. We have Clonakilty taking on Nemo in Bandon at 5 p.m. on Saturday, and Castlehaven against Ballincollig against Ballincollig in Enniskeane on Sunday at 4 p.m. Big games for both teams, Kieran.
Yeah, football fever this weekend. We did the hurling the weekend just gone, but the focus is all on the football this Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Like you said, two huge games for Clonakilty and Castlehaven. Look at Clonakilty first. That's a tough one on Saturday. They're taking on the reigning county champions Nemo in their quarterfinal in Bandon, 5 p.m. Throw in there. Huge game for Clon. I've liked to look at Clon so far this year. Sean White is still an injury out. He missed the last game. He's a hamstring injury. I think it's 50-50 whether he makes it or not for Saturday. And if he makes it, brilliant. It's a huge boost for Clonakilty. But if he's missing, it does take away one of Clonakilty's best players and one of their strongest assets. So hopefully Sean is on the mend this week and we might see him and some guys on Saturday evening. But Nemo are Nemo. I know we're taking Nemo out of the city. We're bringing them down to Bend and bringing them down to West Cork. But it's still going to be a very tough game for Clonakilty. Looking at their group form, they beat Valleys, they drew with Incarby Rangers in a game that's probably best forgotten, the 6 points a piece game. And then while Clon lost to Castlehaven last time out, I think it was by only 2 points, that was a really good football game. And they really went toe-to-toe with a Castlehaven team that has been semi-finalists for the last couple of years. So that's a good indicator that this Clon team has got what it takes. Where I'd worry, Dylan, is their bench. Their bench doesn't seem to be as strong as, let's say, the other teams. But Clonakilty have some top-class footballers all the way through, from Mark White in goal. You have Thomas Clancy, Morris Shanley, Liam O'Donovan back is a huge asset. Young Dara Goff up front is doing quite well too. So Clonakilty have some really good players. So they have what it takes to cause a shock against Nemo. But then again, this is a Nemo team. They know what it takes to win games. They're not county champions for no reason. Paul Kerrigan has won this championship 10 times. Like, that's incredible. Like, what
insane, isn't it?
It's nuts, like the record that Kerrigan has. And they just have, like, I listed off a couple of the key Clan players there. But Nemo have match winners all over the pitch as well. I think it could be a really, really close game, hoping for a Clan win. But Nemo will start as favourites, and it's easy to see why. And then we're looking at the other quarterfinal on Sunday evening, 4 o'clock in Enniskeane, Castlehaven against Ballincollig. This is a tricky game for Castlehaven. They'll go in as favourites here. But this Ballincollig team is coming off the back of a really good win against Éire Óg in their last game. And they won't fear Castlehaven, and they'll be quite confident of causing an upset. So this is a again, a tricky tie for Castlehaven. But going back to match winners, like Brian Hurley, Michael Hurley, Mark Collins, Damien Cahalan, Conor Cahalan, Jack Cahalan, who's been in a match against Clonakilty. So Haven have the players who've been there, done that, and I think their experience will see them through. And if Haven do get through, it's the small matter of St. Finbarrs in the county semi-final for the 4th year in a row. So that's one to whet the appetite, but they've got to get there first.
Obviously, they've got to get there first. Now, it's a good thing I'm not part of the Castlehaven backroom team, because I'm already thinking about that potential semi-final. And if they do get through, will that actually... I know the players won't want to be thinking about it, but will that, the fact that it is the 4th year in a row and they have a chance to get one over kind of their rivals at this stage, will that kind of add fuel to the fire this coming weekend as well, do you think?
I think like this Castlehaven team, like I said, it's well used to being at the business end of the competition, and whether it's finalists 3 years ago, semi-finalists the last couple of years, so they do want to get to the last 4, and they will want to test themselves against the Bars again. The Bars have got the upper hand of them the last couple of times, but James McCarthy will know that Ballincollig will be such a challenge this weekend, because Castlehaven will be the favourites. And Castlehaven impressed when they beat Clon the last day out, but before that they weren't really pulling up trees, they weren't really setting the world on fire. So Castlehaven know they need to find form, but maybe they're trying to peak at the right time. There was no point shooting the lights out in the group stage. It's now, it's the next couple of weeks, quarters, semis, final. That's when a team wants to find their stride and hit form. So Castlehaven will hope that they're building towards something. Maybe their performance against Clan the last round was the first sign that we're seeing Castlehaven moving towards the form that we expect of them. They had Brian Hurley starting again after his injury problems in the last couple of weeks. So that was a big plus. And like I mentioned earlier, when you have the likes of Michael Hurley and Jack Cahalan, and you have those class players dotted all over the field, it really gives Castlehaven a chance of going deep into this competition. But first, they need to get over a Ballincollig team that has quality players dotted throughout that pitch as well. So I think if Haven will Haven need to get over this hurdle on Sunday before they can look forward, they have the players to do it. And I do think Castlehaven will get through to another semi-final against the Bars.
And just on both Castlehaven and Clon as well, before I move on, both of them kind of seemed to play a lot better when they were facing against each other. And so, like, against Nemo Rangers and against Ballincollig, those are two like really good teams, as we've said. Do you think that almost plays into Clon's hands and plays into Haven's hands, that they're teams that they're going to have to come out and play football against? They're going to have to it's kind of almost a slightly different game than against Carbery Rangers or Valleys in the previous kind of in the group stage.
Yeah, you look at that Clan and Nemo game on Saturday. Like, look at this Clan team over the last couple of years. They've such a good defense, as in like they're the likes of like your Maurice Shanley's, your Thomas Clancy's, your Mark White and goal, your Dan Peets. Like they've a really good solid platform. I think what Clan have missed the last couple of years is probably scoring forwards at the other end. They lost Darragh O'Shea, who moved back to Gaeltacht last season, and he was key when Clan got to the county final back in 2021. So Clan have that very solid base, and what they need is just those players to get the scores. They got 114 against Castlehaven, which was a good return. They'll probably have to hit similar figures against Nemo to get the better of Nemo on Saturday. So how the game will pan out, it'll be very interesting. But like you made a good point, looking at Carbery Rangers and Clan game, that was 6 points apiece. And then we had Haven and Clan in a winner-take-all derby that many thought, Jesus, this could be a tight game as well. And I think it was 116 to 114. So like that was a very open, free scoring game. It's not to say the games are going to be like that this weekend, but it did show when both teams opened up their shoulders and kind of went for it, that they have the players to get the scores, and they are two good football teams as well. So it'll be interesting to see the tactics involved in both games, especially with Clan going in as the underdogs and Haven going in as the favourites in their respective quarterfinals, and how that will impact both teams' approaches.
Lots to look forward to this weekend. And we'll move on now to Senior A, Kieran. And you said before, this is one of the most competitive grades out there. Newcestown are into a quarter-final against Kanturk, and we'll chat a little bit about their hurling exploits later. But how do you think they'll get on this weekend?
The Newcestown story is just a great story. Like did a great one there against Killa in the hurling quarter-final the weekend. So they're through there to a county semi-final in the hurling, and they're one game away from getting to county semi-final in football, and both are at senior A level. So it's just a credit and a testament to what Tim Buckley, the Newcestown football manager, and Char Wilson, the Newcestown hurling manager, are doing up there. It's phenomenal, because when you look at the structure of the last couple of years of this new kind of split season, like that, the club window, it's quite condensed, and it's so hard for dual clubs to go deep into both competitions at the same time, because you're out week in, week out. If you look at the group stages there in the football and hurling, Newcestown were in action 6 out of the 7 weekends. Now we're into the knockout stages. The hurlers last weekend, a lot of those same players are going to play with the footballers this weekend, and that's on Sunday in Coachford, where they take on Kanturk. It's going to be a tricky tie. We saw Kanturk were inside of Dunvan Ross's group in the group stage of this competition, and that was a really competitive group, and Kanturk did really well to get out of that. So this is a tricky tie for Newcestown. But once they stay free of injuries, and once they can use the momentum from the hurlers, I wouldn't be surprised to see Newcestown footballers get to a senior A semi-final as well, which would be huge for the club. And then, almost at the opposite end of the spectrum, there is a massive game, Dylan, in Brinny on Sunday. It's a relegation playoff between Island Rovers and Fermoy, and that throws in at 3 p.m. This is a huge, huge game for Ireland. They're only relegated from Premier Senior 2 seasons ago. They struggled at Senior A last year, their first year down at the grade. And I was thinking, okay, they've stopped the rot in one sense, as in they weren't relegated again. And I was expecting Ireland to maybe regroup and build again and go again this year and get out of the group. But it's been the opposite. Like, they struggled in a group that also contained Donnies and Newcestown as well as Bishopstown. They lost all their 3 games, and the end result is they're now fighting to avoid relegation again, and it'll be a huge blow if Ireland lost their senior status. It's, like I said, massive game. They need to win this game. If they suffer second relegation in 3 seasons, that's a body blow for the club. It really is, and it's going to send them down into the Premier Intermediate ranks for next year. They need to halt the slide, and that needs to start this weekend, because they need to put structures in place just to make sure that this club can regroup and that the team can become competitive at Senior A and find their feet and hopefully start pointing in the right direction again. But a huge, huge game for Ireland.
Yeah, and if they were to lose this game, like, it's quite hard to come back from that as well. Like, it's not as if the is it Premier Intermediate is below. Like, that's not necessarily an easy grade to get out of either, is it?
That's exactly it. Like, you're going down into the grade then where the likes of the Bantry Blues and the Castletown Bears are there. Like, it's a really competitive grade, and it's a hard one to get out of. So that's why I think it's so important for Ireland that they really do need to preserve their senior status this weekend. For that, what allow them to do is just almost stop for a second, pause, reset, and put a plan in place for next season to say, okay, lads, we can't let this happen again, because it can't be fun for the players to be involved in relegation scraps year after year after year after year. Like, that must be draining after a while. Like if you look at Donnies, I like what Donnies have done over the last couple of years. They've got a couple of wins under their belt at Senior A. Now they're straight through to County Senior A semi-final. They've used this new county championship structure to their favour, and there's momentum behind the club again. They got promotion from the county league earlier this year as well. So Donnies are a great example of how you can use this new structure to your advantage and build momentum. That's why I think it's important for Ireland, like I said earlier, and I know I'm repeating myself, just to win this game in Brinny on Sunday. And if they do that, just over the winter, put in place a plan that can get this team moving forward again.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Premier Intermediate as well, Bantry Blues, they were in the final last year, weren't they? And this year they have a quarter-final against Nemo Rangers this weekend. That's on Sunday in Enniskeen at 2:00. So that's another huge game for a West Cork club this weekend.
It is, if we know that the Bantry were obviously in the county final last year, they want to get back there again. This is going to be a tough game against Nemo Rangers, but I'm looking at Bantry. They have momentum behind them. They topped their group. They're unbeaten so far. Hopefully they'll have Roy Dean back in action this weekend. He's their Cork senior. He missed the draw against Macroom. last time out. So if Bantry have all their players available, I think they'll win this game, and I think they'll get through to the county semi-final. But like I said, Dylan, that experience of last year is crucial. Bantry know what it takes to get to a county final, and hopefully they can do it again. And I think they'll take a step towards that this weekend.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Now, there's plenty of games on this weekend. We unfortunately won't have time to go through them all, but I'm sure we will be speaking about all the results on the podcast next week. We're going to move on just now to the hurling, which happened at the weekend. And in the Senior A Hurling Championship, we mentioned Newcestown earlier briefly, Kieran. They beat Inniscarra 119 to 210. And we had Luke Mead on earlier and this year on the podcast to talk about how important their presence in the championship is for West Cork and for Newcestown as well, obviously. And they've been rewarded with a semi-final in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, they're going to take on Carrick-Tuhill on Saturday, September 30th at 4 p.m. in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So it's back up to the city for Newcestown. And this was a really good second half performance against Killa last weekend. The teams were tied at the break, but then Newcestown got the job done in the second half. Edmund Keneally was the star of the show, won 8. He got 7 from place balls, including 6 frees. 3 points from Jack Mead as well. So a really, really good second half performance from Newcestown. And they're now in the last 4 of the championship. And looking at the other side of the draw, you've Bride Rovers against Blarney. They're all kind of really proud hurling strongholds. And look at Newcestown in there too, flying the Carbery flag in a county semi-final. And like I said about the footballers earlier, Dylan, it's all about momentum. If Newcestown can keep that momentum and crucially keep fellas fit, stay clear of injuries, they have what it takes to get to the county final here. And that would be an incredible achievement for Newcestown to be going strong in both grades. So that was a huge win for Newcestown last weekend. And this fairy tale, this story, it's not over yet.
Yeah, I think once you get to a semi-final, it's almost anyone's championship to win at that stage. So hopefully we'll be celebrating a semi-final win in a couple of weeks' time. That was good fortunes for one West Cork club, but it was heartbreak for Kilbrittain in the Premier Junior Championship, Kieran, as they lost out on penalties to Glen Rovers.
We've obviously the match report and reaction in Thursday's Southern Star, and Kilbrittain boss Jamie Wall kind of describes it as a sickener, and it really is. What a cruel way to bow out of the championship. So Kilbrittain's game against Glen Rovers on Sunday in Ovens, it went all the way to extra time. After extra time, teams were still tied. It was 24 points to Kilbrittain, 121 to Glen Rovers. So we went to the dreaded penalty shoot out there, and it was there Ben Heffernan, the Glen goalkeeper. He stopped 3 of Kilbrittain's penalties, and Glen Rovers won that shootout 3-0. And Heffernan actually got the winning penalty himself. So just a cruel way for Kilbrittain to bow out, because they've been there or thereabouts in this Premier Junior Hurling Championship the last couple of years. They were finalists not too long ago. They've always got to the knockout stages that's 4 years in a row, but they just haven't managed to get over the line in terms of win this title. So it's a big blow to Kilbrittain to be out at this stage of the championship. But we still do have one West Cork team left, Dylan. Barry Rowe were straight through to the semi-final, and they discovered the weekend that they're going to be playing Aaron's Own in their County Premier Junior Hurling Championship semi-final, and that is on Saturday, September 30th in Carrigaline at 5 p.m. So we have the high-flying Barry Rowe waving the Carbery hurling flag there. So we'll probably chat about that more in next week's podcast. And as well as it being a weekend to forget for Kilbrittain, it certainly was for the Bandon hurlers too. They suffered their second relegation in 3 years. They lost their relegation playoff against Carrigaline 121 to 2-9, and it means that they've dropped down a level, that the Bandon hurlers will be playing Intermediate A hurling next year, and that's very disappointing for the club. But when we're looking at this game against Carrigaline the weekend, they were 110 to no score down before they actually got their first score on the board, and that's just not good enough. In a game like a relegation playoff, you need to bring it. You need to be at the pitch of the game from the very start. I know they lost Rob Long. It's one of their kind of talismanic players at the start. He was missing before a ball was poked, and that obviously was a blow, but it just wasn't good enough from Bandon on the day. And their punishment, for want of a better word, is they're now down at Intermediate A next year. So hopefully they can regroup there and just kind of just stop the slide and try and, because Bandon's a big town. Bandon's a really big town, and it's a proud hurling town as well. And they battled so hard to climb up the ranks those couple of years ago. So it's not nice to see them starting to slide back down as well. So hopefully they can arrest that slide next year. But it's going to be a long winter for the Bandon hurlers.
The nominations for the highly anticipated 2023 PwC Camogie All-Star Awards have been revealed, Kieran, and leading the pack are Cork with 11 nominations, and West Cork's well represented within that as well.
Yeah, brilliant to see that the All-Ireland champions have those 11 nominations, and flying the West Cork flag there, we have St. Cullum's Libby Coppinger, who also won her first Camogie All-Star last year. She's been shortlisted, as well as the Courcey Rovers duo of Fiona Keating and Saoirse McCarthy. And Saoirse was also an All-Star last year. And to make it even better, Dylan, Saoirse has been shortlisted for the top award, you could say, the PwC GPA Camogie Player of the Year. She's one of 3 players shortlisted alongside Cork captain Amy O'Connor and Beth Carton of Waterford, who had a wonderful season as well. But Saoirse McCarthy was absolutely outstanding this year. So personally, I think she's a shoo-in for an All-Star, and she's a really, really good chance of taking home the Senior Player of the Year award as well. But this is just reward for these Cork players. They were so good in the business end of this competition. And we've spoken about it before in this podcast with the likes of Amy O'Connor and the former Cork boss, and Matthew Toomey. To beat Kilkenny, Galway and Waterford in the quarters, semi and final was a phenomenal way to get the O'Duffy Cup back on Lee's side. So just for the record, the 11 Cork players nominated are Amy Lee, goalkeeper, Amy O'Connor, Fiona Keating, Hannah Looney, Katrina Mackey, Laura Hayes, Laura Tracy, Libby Coppinger, Maeve Murphy, Saoirse McCarthy, and Maeve Cahalan. And we could also claim Maeve Cahalan as West Cork, Dylan, because her father is none other than the Castlehaven legend Niall Cahalan. So I think we could almost say there's 4 West Cork players there, and I don't think anyone would claim us of reaching too far to bring a player into the West Cork fold. But it's just great to see that there's such a great Cork representation on the All-Star list, and the big night is on in Croke Park on 4th of November, and that's when we'll see who bring home the All-Stars and who bring home the big award.
That's one for the diary. And if there is a West Cork link to any other players, I'm sure we'll find it. We're good at finding those West Cork links here in the Southern Star. We're going to take a very quick break now, but we'll be back to hear from Fintan McCarthy.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
And welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. And Kieran, coming up now is your conversation with World Rowing Champion Fintan McCarthy. It's a great chat between the two of you, and he gave us some great insight into how himself and Paul O'Donovan have managed to kind of almost reinvent themselves over the last couple of years, because their preparations for each of the world championships that they've won in has been quite different each time around.
That's it. Yeah, it was 12 months, I think, since we actually had Fintan on the podcast, so it was great to catch up with him again. And it's almost for our listeners just to recognise just what Paul and Fintan are doing, because they've now won a hat-trick of World Championship titles. They're 2-time European champions. They're defending Olympic champions. They're the most successful Irish rowing crew of all time. And they're 2 Skibbereen men. They're two West Cork men. They're 2 men from the same parish of Aughadown. So it's incredible to think what the Skibbereen rowers have done over the last couple of years. And everyone's spoken about it now. It's not like it's a secret. Like, Skibbereen is almost an international medal rowing factory at this stage, with the quality of athlete that it's turned out. But the 2 lads were on the front of last week's Star, and when I tweeted it out the front page, I said, enjoy them while they're here. And that really is it. It's just to enjoy what Fintan and Paul are doing right now, because it's phenomenal. And reality is that nothing lasts forever. And if we're thinking about lightweight rowing, the expectation is that lightweight rowing will be cut from the Olympics after Paris in 2024. So it looks like this will be the final swan song. That's almost a tongue twister there for Olympic rowing. So it could be their last chance to win a gold medal together. So for the next 12 months, just soak up the joy that is Paul and Fintan, and even the likes of Aoife Casey, who's in the Irish lightweight women's double, and Coach Dominic Casey, and just all of what these rowers have done to put Skibbereen sport and West Cork sport on the map in recent years, because it's quite phenomenal that West Cork locals are the best in the world in their chosen sport. And when you look at rowing, Dylan, it really is a global sport. Like, all the countries involved, yet two lads from Aughadown are just a class apart, and they proved it again at the recent Worlds. And that's why it was great to get Fintan on, just to have a chat about their journey this year, which, like Dylan said earlier, was a lot different to last year when they were barely in the boat together. And it was definitely different to 2021 when they were on the boat together the whole time as they won Olympic gold. So what these two lads have done is they've found different ways to win, and they've always adapted, and they've always made it work. And that's why they have 3 world titles to their name, and that's why they are the best in the world at what they do, and that's why they will be favourites for gold at next year's Olympics. Fintan was in good form here. He was just back from Belgrade. Like I said, it was a good chance to catch up with him. And what I found really interesting from this chat that you're about to hear now is when he gave us a bit of insight into almost himself and Paul's mindset in the boat, because it's well known by now. You don't have to be a rowing nerd to understand or to know that the two lads don't set off at the fastest pace. They're always going 5th or 6th after 500, and they always kind of work their way into race, but they always come good at the end with an incredible surge. And I just asked Fintan about that. I said, how confident are you that you're always going to come through with the second half of the race? And I just found his answer really, really interesting, as well as when he broke down the recent world final as well, and what the Swiss did there and how they had to adapt. So sit back, enjoy this chat with Fintan McCarthy, one of the greatest athletes that West Cork has produced, and a man who's set for a huge 12 months in the run-up to Paris next summer. Fintan, I was looking at your Instagram there not too long ago, and you put up a post after the Worlds, and you said third time is a charm. So your third time being crowned world champion, how did this compare to the previous two in 2019 and 2022?
I think they're all different, to be honest. Like this one, I guess we didn't spend much time together at all last year, and then the first time was our first year in the boat, so it's all each year has been kind of different, but this one was this one's really special. You know, we kind of knuckled down like quite hard after Lucerne, obviously, because we were only back together a short time, and got beaten by the French. So I think we just had a really kind of focused camp and 2 weeks training before camp, and then we knew we were in good shape coming to the World. So it was nice to show our stuff again, I think.
Take me back actually to World Cup 3, because that was, you mentioned there, the French beat you 0.09 of a second. Like, it's just, you were so close to winning gold in that regatta. That was your first defeat together in 4 years since 2019, and I think everyone kind of turned their head and said, "Oh, what's going on here?" But the important context was yourself and Paul. Had you even been in the boat together for the last 9 months before that? Like, what was your I suppose your training like before you went into Lucerne?
Yeah, no, we did have a few weeks together, but I think it's just been a different season for us both. Obviously, Paul had his final year in college, and it hadn't been a bad season for me, but definitely not my best. You know, I think just going off training times and how I was feeling and stuff, I don't think I was really firing on all cylinders until I actually took a bit of a break after Lucerne, and then we got back into training, and then that's when I started feeling like kind of my old self. I know it sounds funny, but I started feeling really good after that, and the double started kind of clicking again. We had a few kind of really tough weeks in Spain, and then that last week it was just kind of coming together really well. So I think it's been a challenging season, really. Like I said, different to previous ones. But I think that's good. We're always it's always exciting to like overcome new challenges, and sure, it'd be boring if it was the same every year. So
you're going to think that all I do is watch your Instagram, right? But after World Cup 3 in Lucerne, you put up a post, the fire is lit, or something along that lines, like finishing second to the French. What was your feeling after? You still brought home a silver medal, but yourself and Paul, you are the best in the world. You're so used to winning gold. Was it almost, I suppose, a shock to the system is the wrong word, but what was that like to finish second in a race?
Yeah, obviously, you go into every race wanting to win. So I think initially I was just a bit obviously disappointed that we'd lost. And when it's that close as well, it is, sometimes it's just down to the surge of the stroke and where you're, who's actually taking the stroke as you cross the line. But I think it's funny because the same thing happened to us in 2019, where in the last World Cup before the World Champs, we were just pipped to the line by the Germans that year as well. I know that was our first year together, but there's just been a few things like that this year where I feel like, I don't know, history is kind of repeating itself in a way, and it's happened a few times just in life in general as well. So I think it was obviously not a fun experience being beaten, but I do think it was good for us to look back on where we could improve. And it's kind of easy to say like, oh, we'll just do more training and get fitter and win again then. But I think even though we hadn't been together very long, we probably were fit enough to have won that race. So I think it was good that we didn't just go, oh, we'll just do more training and hopefully that'll get us there. Like we really kind of looked into how we were rowing and how we were racing and tried to make those changes over the last camp, then coming into the World Champs. So I think, I don't know, would we have done that if we had lost or if we'd won? So yeah, I guess that was again something different, and in the end I think it did actually stand to us. And also we learned a lot for next year as well.
You were saying there that you took a couple of days off after Lucerne, that you weren't feeling the best version of yourself. Could you put your finger on what exactly that was this year, that you weren't hitting those targets that you'd set yourself?
Not really. I think that's just sometimes the way it goes. There's like obviously lulls in like motivation and health and stuff, but nothing serious, just not probably operating at 98, 97% instead of 101. And that, like, if you want to be winning all the time, then you kind of do need to be close enough to that 100%, I think. So I think that was it really. But yeah, thank God it worked out well in the end.
It definitely worked out well, and you were definitely at 101% in Belgrade last week. Talk me through the regatta from the heat through to the quarters to obviously the semi-final was crucial in terms of Olympic qualification. But did you just feel good into Belgrade?
Yeah, really good. I think we had a tough camp, and if you actually compare it to some of the training we've done the past years, it's really been up there in terms of like volume and speed as well with some of our best years. So from that, we kind of had a good idea of how fit and how fast we were. So then obviously that gives you another boost going into the world. So our first race went really well too. It just felt nice. We felt controlled, and I think we got quite a good time in the heat compared to the rest, because that was kind of the only race really where there wasn't sort of a strong kind of headwind condition. So we got quite a quick time. I think another heat went faster with us with the Swiss in it. So we kind of had our eye on them from the start of the regatta really. and then it was kind of just about getting through the rounds. We had the Italians in the quarterfinal, who are always up there. You know, I think they've won a silver medal at the Worlds behind us every year since 2019. So it was nice to kind of race them early. I think they have a new man in the boat this year as well. So it was good to kind of get a gauge of them, because we hadn't actually raced them this season yet. And we were ahead of them. That was kind of a tough race for me. I don't know, I must have messed up the warm up or something, but I was really tired after that one. And we had the semi the next day. And after the quarters, obviously there was, you know, some reseeding of the lanes. So luckily we'd kind of gone fast in the early round, so we were getting that inside line, which was supposedly a bit better in terms of conditions. So we were sort of just racing the crew next to us on that side for the spots, and then we managed to qualify the boat for Paris in the semi, and then went on to the final.
Talk to me about Olympic qualification, that AB semi-final. So just for the listeners, the top 7 boats in the men's and women's lightweight double, they qualified the boats for the Paris Games next summer, and it's the athletes that are confirmed closer to the time. But how important is it to get the boat qualified now, instead of like the lightweight women's double back in 2021? They did it in the final qualification regatta. But what difference does it make now, Fintan? Does it almost shape what the winter next year is going to look like, knowing that the boat is already going to Paris?
Yeah, I think just in terms of the plan for next year, it does make things a bit simpler in terms of just making sure we time our training so that we're going to be the fastest versions of ourselves in Paris. Whereas, you know, if you don't qualify at this point, there is another chance next May, but you got to make sure you're going really quick then, so that you get in. And then the Olympics is only a month and a half or a couple of months after that. So it just makes things a bit more complicated in terms of timing, like peak and recovery and training load and stuff like that. So it's a big relief to get it done kind of this end of the year, so we can just have a full run up to Paris and make sure, you know, we're not having to peak once or twice more during the season.
And what is the kind of feeling for yourself and Paul? Like, you crossed the finish line, you won the semi-final, you knew the boat was qualified, but on the outside looking in, there's this expectation from us. Of course, Paul and Fintan are going to get the boat there. So for you, is it joy? Is it relief? Is it box tick, job done, let's move on? Or what's it like for you?
Yeah, I don't think I really thought about it till after, because, you know, it is a World Championships, and obviously we were aiming to win the World, so getting through the semi is a prerequisite to having a race in the final and winning the World. So in that sense, it was another just step along the way. But, you know, it's you're still qualifying a boat for the Olympics. It's not something that many people get to do ever. So I think in retrospect, that one it's funny, because I think during the regatta, it's just the semi-final. You know, we've done 100, or probably not 100, but, you know, we've done many a semi-final, and it was not really much different from any of those, except for what was attached to it. So I think looking back, it was great to kind of get it done there and have full focus on the final, and then full focus for next year as well.
And looking at that final, so tactics-wise, what was your thinking going into the final? The Swiss were there. The Swiss double had a super year. The Italians were there, like you said. They've always kind of ran you close. So, what was can you let us in, peek behind the curtains? What were your tactics going into the final, Fintan?
Well, we kind of, you'd have a bit of an idea of everyone's sort of race profiles. You know, like everyone knows we don't go off too quickly, and then sort of try and build speed through the race and come through by the end. But you'd have sort of a clue just from racing over the years and racing during the regatta of how people pace a race and what people are going to do. So I was actually quite surprised we were so far in the pack in the first 500. Usually, you know, we'd be a bit behind and then catch up. But it played out a little bit differently this time because we were all sort of close enough with the 500, and then the Swiss really pushed away in the second quarter of the race, which, you know, I didn't necessarily expect it to happen there, but I knew they would be probably as far ahead of us as they were at some point in that first cape. But I just maybe expected it to happen a bit earlier, whereas they seemed to wait a bit and then go, which, you know, it was probably good because it's something we haven't really experienced like too much of in the last couple of years. So yeah, it was good to kind of have that happen and still know that we could reel them in and kind of draw level enough by the 1500 and then push on through the last 500 as, you know, as usual. So yeah, that's kind of how the final played out. I think that as well, saying all that, it's in retrospect as well. So it's during the race, I'm definitely not thinking, oh, that's strange that they're gone in the second 500. But I think during it, you can't really control what anyone else is doing, so you just gotta stay internal really and trust the plan and trust our fitness and speed. And I did really believe that we were going to come through no matter what, so I just kind of kept following Paul and, you know, pushing the legs down as hard as I could, and yeah, it all worked out in the end.
How confident are yourself and Paul that you will come through in the second half of a race? Like you said there, the Swiss went in the second 500 this time. We've seen over the last couple of years, different crews going off early, trying to build that gap over you to get ahead of you. But it's just inevitable that this Irish double is going to come through and eventually
touch
hit the
wood.
Touch wood. Exactly, touch wood. But what does that come down to? Why do you think that the races unfold like that? What do you have that allows you to do that in a race?
I don't know. I think we do pay really close attention to training and what we're getting out of training. So I think we are always very fit going into that last competition of the year. But as well, it could be like a confidence thing. You know, I think we're confident enough to just sit there, try not to waste too much energy at the start, and then you know, empty the tank sort of in the second half of the race, because it's all well and good to be leading to 1900 meters, but it's crossing the line where you want to be ahead. So I think some crews might get like a psychological edge from being ahead at a certain part of the race or something, but I think maybe because we don't spend too much time thinking about that or paying attention to who's ahead of us, it kind of makes the first bit of the race a bit more relaxed, so that we can really make sure that we're coming through and getting the most out of ourselves kind of over the whole race, rather than going too hard and dying.
You mentioned Banyoles a couple of times. Take us back to the pain of Spain. What was that training camp like before the Worlds? Like, was it one of the toughest ones you put down? And what does a training camp in Banyoles looks like before Worlds?
Yeah, no, the training was really good. It's funny when you're in that kind of zone or mode or whatever, it's actually a bit easier because, you know, your food's made for you. You only have to walk down or cycle down to the boat. You're getting like 9 hours of sleep a night. So it's actually easy to push yourself hard in training. So yeah, while it is tough, it's not like, you know, sometimes you're at home and you'd be wrecked because you're running to the shop in between sessions or you know, staying up to watch something. So yeah, it does make the training a lot easier, but you can also, you know, push yourself a bit more and go a bit further and all that. So In terms of like other years, I think it was just very consistent. Like we didn't have any like superhero weeks, but they were 3 really consistent weeks where we were just getting the work done day after day after day. And I think that really stood to us as well. We had a couple of weeks at home before we left as well, which were really solid. So I think, yeah, I would say consistency was probably the theme of this year's camp.
It's a lovely segue to my next question. Consistency of training, consistency of yourself and Paul winning gold medals is incredible. Are you aware of what you're doing right now? You're the most successful Irish rowing crew of all time. I would safely guess right now, given your Olympic gold, 3 worlds, Jesus, Europeans, World Cup, you name it, you've won it. Like, are you living in the moment, or can you ever step outside Fintan and say, Jesus, what we're doing here is just off the charts in terms of what's gone before in Irish rowing?
No, I don't think we like do it for any of that or think about it really. I definitely don't anyway. Like we're just kind of going through the process, and it's fun. Like, you know, we're with our friends, we're going really fast, which is kind of everything I've ever wanted anyway. So it's just great to be in it and doing it still.
And you're obviously taking it in your stride, because behind you, off a picture, there's a gold medal hanging. Which gold? Which gold medal?
It's not mine. It's not mine.
Oh, it's just so you just have kind of gold medals hanging around the house in Ballincollig, is it?
It's a chocolate one actually.
Oh yes, I was trying to work out which medal it was, so kind of just chocolate.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that would probably be eaten at some point. But
what does the winter look like now? World Championships are done. That's the heavy lifting of this year done. Do you get time off? What does it look like, or what's the next couple of weeks gonna shape out like?
Yeah, no, I think we'll have a bit of time away from sort of like structured training anyway. Might do a bit just to keep fit, and then probably look at a plan of the year with Dominic and go from there in terms of you know, targeting certain regattas and working out what the preparation for Paris is going to look like. It's always kind of a bit earlier in the year, so you know, some camps are on at different times and you do different training blocks a bit later, earlier, and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting, and I really like that part of it as well. So looking forward to it, to be honest. Yeah.
You love the planning, don't you?
Yeah, you know me well. I love a plan.
And I think what's great here too, Fintan, is it was such a good world champs for the lightweight group in total. The Mags and Aoife qualifying the Irish women's lightweight double for Paris, absolutely brilliant. Siobhan in the lightweight single winning gold. Jake back in the international scene for the first time in a while. Great to see him back. Yeah. So what's the mood like in the lighties right now?
Good. Yeah. No, I think big relief that we're both qualified now and can just focus on getting to Paris in the best shape possible, really. You know, I think obviously the girls would have wanted a bit more from the regatta, but they're just you know, they're on fire. So I think next year is going to be good.
When you've 7 Irish boats already qualified for the Olympics, it's incredible, isn't it? Like, it's just, I know Paris is what, 10, 11 months away still. It's a good distance away, but to have that many Irish boats now going, it just shows the great work going on inside Northern Ireland at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to see as well. You know, there are obviously hard days, so it's just good to see you know, your friends getting what they want out of it, and I can't wait to all be there together in Paris and racing for medals.
And like I said earlier, it's the board that qualifies and the athletes will be kind of confirmed closer, but will you allow yourself get excited kind of to start the mind drifting towards Paris now, or how do you approach the next winter training block and so on?
Yeah, no, I am excited because it's another Olympic year. I know the last one was only a couple of years ago, but I think it'll be great to just take the lessons from that one, see if we can get a bit better next year even, and just get to Paris as the fastest version ever of ourselves. And whether it's, you know, whoever's in the boat, I think it's going to be obviously really fast. So just trying to extract every bit of potential out of ourselves in the next 11 or 10 months or however long this is going to be. Just another challenge. And I think we love the challenges, so keep them coming.
Final question, and it's finished on a nice easy one for you, Fintan. You just mentioned there about getting to Paris as the fastest version of yourselves. Is that almost a process then of taking different bits of the last couple of years? Go back to 2021, yourself and Paul were in the boat all year long together, and look what you achieved. 2022, barely in the boat together, still won European gold, still won world gold. This year, between World Cup 3 and the Worlds, you got that training camp time in the boat together and you won. So is it taking bits out of every year, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, I think that'll be it, really. Just kind of thinking about what's worked over the past, even before Tokyo, what's worked for us, and tweaking. Obviously, you can't just repeat what you've done before, and I don't think we've ever done that like totally. But it is good to see what's worked, maybe see if we can get those things a bit better, and toss out what maybe hasn't worked as well. So I think the next few weeks probably be about looking over that and then seeing where to start, really.
Brilliant, exciting times ahead, and no doubt that chocolate medal will be eaten in your downtime in the weeks ahead. So cheers to joining us, Fintan.
No worries. Thanks for that, Kieran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. And Kieran, now is the time of the week where you give our listeners and viewers a sneak preview of what's coming up in this week's Southern Star Sport. So
it goes for granted that the hurling action last weekend, both at Carbery level, Mid Cork and county level, that's all covered comprehensively in Thursday's Southern Star. We also have a load of previews ahead of the football weekend, whether it's Orhan in Premier Junior Football quarter-final action. Aughadown are also in county quarter-final action this weekend, and I caught up with their manager, Tim Sullivan. And just a very interesting line from that is that their S&C coach, Mark Power, is also the S&C coach for the All-Ireland winning Dublin football team. So if that's a lucky sign, looking at the Dubs did this year, hopefully Aughadown can get a bit of silverware and into their cupboard as well. But we've Haven in there, we've Island Rovers, we've Clonakilty, Bantry Blues and so on. Huge game, huge weekend for local football teams, and we have that covered in depth. I also have a very interesting piece on the Castlehaven team that won the 1973 Carbery Junior A Football Championship. They held a reunion in the West Cork Hotel in Skibbereen recently. Tom Lyons went along. So we've a nice piece on that, and just one to watch out for in the weeks ahead. We also have an interview with Christy Collins, the Castlehaven legend, on that 1973 Castlehaven team as well. So that'll be in the Star in the weeks ahead. The Camogie Championship is going on to the quarterfinals. Courcey Rovers will be in action there. We've news on that, and as well in the Cork Ladies Football Championships. And one of our feature games this week is the Clonakilty's win against Kinsale in Group 1 of the Ladies Senior Football Championship. A win that puts Clonakilty in the frame to get through to the semi-finals of the A Championship. They're in action again this weekend. Skipping quickly to soccer, our feature West Cork League game was Skibbereen had a resounding 3-0 win away against Dunmanway Town. So that's well worth checking out. And since we were speaking about that, we're always looking for that West Cork link to anyone, basically, any sports story with a West Cork link. If you hear one, please get in contact with us. Email sport@southernstar.ie, or you can get us on Twitter as well. But we also just have the link between Lee Carsley and Dunmanway. Lee Carsley is favourite to succeed Stephen Kinney when the guillotine will eventually drop, which we presume will be at some stage soon. It's like a stay of execution for Stephen Kinney. And if it is Lee Carsley, it's through his Dunmanway connections that he actually represented Ireland 40 times. So we explained that connection in Thursday's Southern Star. We also had Jack Watch, which is our weekly look at Jack Crowley, the first West Cork man to play at the Rugby World Cup. He didn't feature in the win against Tonga last weekend. Ross Byrne was given his chance, but the hope and our expectation is that Crowley will be back on the bench for the huge game against the Springboks this Saturday. And we've local rugby in there and so much more as well. And also another link, before I let us go, Dylan, another link to West Cork. Mark Power, the Kilkenny golfer who turned pro recently, and he finished tied 33rd at the recent Irish Open. We bring back his link to West Cork again because his mother is none other than Eileen Rose McDade from Skibbereen, who was one of the top women's Irish golfers in the early 1990s. She won the Irish Close Championship, I think it was 3 times. She was on a winning Curtis Cup team, and she also had the chance to turn pro, but she turned it down. But her son Mark has now gone pro, but no wonder he's doing so well with their Skibbereen and West Cork golfing genes. So as you can see, there's a hell of a lot in Thursday's Southern Star as usual.
As usual, indeed. And as always, if you're further afield, can't make to the shops, you can subscribe to the Southern Star and get it on your laptop, tablet, or phone. Just head to subscribe.southernstar.ie, enter your details, and you'll get an exact replica of the newspaper alongside full access to all the articles on our website for less than €2 per week. And as always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. And thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be back again next week. Thanks for listening.